welcome back. So here's to the crazy ones.
The misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently.
Come on, admit it. As soon as I started saying it, you knew what it was. It's legendary. And if you're anything like me, the moment you heard it, you thought of Apple's Think Different campaign. It's one of the most famous commercials of all time. But here's what a lot of people don't know. Steve Jobs actually hated that script at first.
What?
He called it shit. Imagine that. The ad that would define Apple's resurgence. Rejected. According to Rob Stiltonen, the creative director behind the campaign, Jobs had to be convinced that this was the message Apple needed. And he was wrong at first, just like so many contrarian thinkers are, before the world catches up.
Absolutely fascinating.
When we think of contrarians, it's got a negative connotation, right? We picture the difficult ones, the ones who argue for the sake of arguing. But true contrarian thinking isn't about being argumentative. It's about being able to see something that other people can't yet. Some contrarians just push against norms because they like the fight. But others are visionaries and they see the world differently. And that is where the magic happens. So let me ask you, are you a contrarian thinker?
I'd like to think so, yes.
But if I'm being honest, I'm not sure I know how to do that.
Now here's where it gets interesting, because contrarian thinking isn't just about business or innovation. It actually plays a massive role in something as personal as gratitude.
Can you explain that?
I mean, most of us practice gratitude by reflecting on what we have. You know, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my job, I'm grateful for my health. But what if I told you that science suggests a better way to feel gratitude? And it has everything to do with what you don't have.
Okay, I'm listening.
Well, this is where the George Bailey effect comes in.
Say what?
Researchers have found that instead of just listing things you're grateful for, you should actually imagine a world where they never existed. Think about your best friend. Now, imagine you never met that person. Think about a pivotal moment in your career. Now, picture an alternate universe where that moment never happened. That is the George Bailey effect, and it comes straight from the classic film, It's a Wonderful Life. In the movie, George Bailey is at his lowest point. He's convinced his life doesn't matter. But instead of telling him to count his blessings, an angel shows him what the world would look like if he had never existed. And that is what makes him realize how much his life actually means. Science backs this up. Thinking about the absence of something, whether it's a person or an experience, or even something as simple as clean drinking water, reignites our appreciation for it. And it stops us from taking things for granted. It's far more powerful than just simply thinking about things you're grateful for.
Well, that makes so much sense.
Now, what's the psychology behind
Yes,
it?
I'd love to know.
Well, our brains are wired to adapt. And the things that we're initially thrilled about, you know, our dream job, our soulmate, even our health, eventually become the normal and we stop feeling the highs. But when we introduce a contrast, when we imagine what life would be without those things, it breaks that cycle of adaptation. And suddenly, what was once ordinary feels extraordinary again.
Look, it's not magic, it's science.
This shift doesn't just work for personal gratitude. Research shows that it can strengthen our commitment to our relationships, our workplace, even our sense of patriotism.
And love science twice as much in times such as these.
In the 1860s, as the United States was on the verge of a civil war, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote a now famous poem about Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. He took a lot of creative license, but it didn't matter because historians say the poem actually strengthened American nationalism because it made people think, what if Paul Revere had never made that ride? What if our country's founding had played out differently? Scientists wondered, could we recreate that psychological effect?
Because that would be valuable information.
So they ran an experiment. They had volunteers write alternative universe essays, like what if America had never been founded? What if there was no Paul Revere? No Declaration of Independence? Then they measured their levels of patriotism.
Well, so what did they find out?
Turns out those who reflected on an alternate history felt far more connected to their country.
Wait, what are you saying?
They did the same experiment in the corporate world. Employees who imagined a world where their company never existed were far more loyal, more emotionally connected, and more committed to its success and its future.
It's crazy.
So here's my challenge for you. For the next 7 days, don't just think about what you're grateful for. Subtract it. Imagine your life if that thing that you're grateful for had never existed. And then tell me in the comments what you noticed.
This could be a game changer.
Contrarian thinking isn't about arguing just to argue. It's about seeing the world from an angle that other people can't. And sometimes that perspective can be a superpower. And if you want to learn 5 simple ways to develop the contrarian thinking in your brain, check out my recent post. I'll add the link below. Because whether it's in business or innovation or relationships or even gratitude, the ability to think differently.
And it's not a little better, it's much better.